Greetings, and thank you for joining us for the 49th episode of DC Animation with Spencer and Friends. This is an LMG Podcast Production. Today, I'm joined by a dear friend.
Darth David has returned.
Yes, Darth David is here. If you are a fan of really either podcast, you've heard his voice before. Uh, David, real quick, it's been a minute. Can you remind the people about your DC consumption? What DC you take in? Video games, movies, TV shows? What DC are you consuming?
In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. I am all things DC, movies, comic books, video games, all the above. I did own various DC encyclopedias at one point in time because your boy just loves comics in general.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it. Well, I appreciate you for joining us on this journey through DC animation. Today's film is JLA Adventures Trapped in Time, released January 21st, 2014. I'm going to read a synopsis in my own words, and then we're just going to talk about it.
Sounds good to me.
So, we open in the Arctic, where the Legion of Doom has gathered to use a crypto ray to expand the polar ice caps. As Lex is explaining the plan, Superman and the Justice League arrive to put a stop to their dastardly endeavors. Superman, Batman, and Cyborg go into space to take care of the satellites, and four of the five satellites are destroyed, so Captain Cold overloads the last one, creating a super ice beam, which seemingly kills Lex Luthor. In the 21st century, Karate Kid is complaining to Dawnstar that he isn't a member of the Legion of Superheroes, and like, why the fuck am I not a member of the Legion of Superheroes? While at the museum, they come across Lex Luthor's frozen body, and Karate Kid wants to break the ice and put his hands on him. Karate Kid accidentally breaks the ice, which frees Lex, and he learns Superman's secret identity from the museum. Lex Luthor uses the cold gun to freeze Karate Kid and Dawnstar and freeze the Time Trapper. The Time Trapper takes Lex back to his own time, and just before the portal closes, Dawnstar frees herself and Karate Kid, and they jump in the portal too, taking them back to the 21st century. Lex arrives and has Solomon Grundy summon the Legion of Doom. Time Trapper asks for freedom, but Lex chooses slavery instead. Dawnstar and Karate Kid see if they can find heroes that can stop the Legion of Doom. They get in a taxi and head over to the Hall of Justice, where they find Robin, who mistakes them for nefarious intruders, so they get to throwing hands. Their fight is broken up when the Big Three arrive, and Wonder Woman hits them with the lasso of truth, so, they start telling them about the situation. Meanwhile, Lex is explaining the situation to the Legion of Doom. Superman summons the League, and Lex opens a portal to stop the Kents from getting Superman. The Legion of Doom make it through the portal, and Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman follow. Just as the Kents find the baby, Kal-El, Solomon Grundy and Cheetah come disguised as a couple claiming to be the parents. They surrender the baby, and the League members show up to save him. The Flash returns the baby to the Kents, but it's not the baby. It was a Toyman decoy. Bizarro puts the super baby into the spaceship and yeets that thing into space. This allows the Time Trapper to send the Justice League to the Shadow Realm. The Legion of Doom is now free to do whatever they want, and Dawnstar and Karate Kid think that hope is lost, but they have an idea. If they can find Lex that is frozen in ice in this time, they can free him, which means he doesn't reach the 31st century, which caused this whole mess. On their way to Lex, they come across Captain Cold, Grodd, and Black Manta, who are also looking for Lex. They explain to the Legion of Doom that they want to find Lex, and they are not going to be able to do it without their help, but they decide to throw hands instead. Dawnstar locates Lex, and Karate Kid finds a weak point in the ice, which frees Lex. Time Trapper sends future Lex to the Shadow Realm, which frees him from his shackles, and he declares that he will remake this world in darkness. Dawnstar and Karate Kid confront Time Trapper, and he tells them it's too late. The Justice League arrives, and Time Trapper starts pulling everything into a giant sky portal. All physical attacks have no effect on Time Trapper, so Karate Kid looks for a weakness and finds the Time Trapper is made of dark matter. The only person that can harm him is Dawnstar. After a real quick pep talk, she shines bright like a diamond and separates him from his hourglass, and the League start putting a pause on him. Time Trapper is absorbed back into the hourglass. The day is saved. Lex is collected from the Arctic and taken to Blackgate by Superman, and Grodd swears the Legion of Doom will have its revenge. Upon returning to the 31st century, Dawnstar and Karate Kid find that Lex Luthor has a statue in the museum where Superman's statue used to be. Figuring the timeline is all fucked up now, they immediately go back to the 21st century. And that's the movie. So, David, what'd you think of the movie?
Brother, you picked one hell of a movie to do a joint commentary on. Where do I begin? I'm gonna just get a general overview. Uh, As far as DC animation goes, and you know as well as I do, DC animation is typically top tier. Bro, this is down at the bottom of the barrel for me. That's a solid 4.9 out of 10, and that's being generous.
Okay. And, that's one of the things that I like to do is we have to talk about not literally every single movie, but we got to talk about all of it. So some of these movies are excellent top tier television, regardless of medium, and some of them aren't. That's just how it goes. Every franchise has some misses. As a Star Wars fan, you are painfully aware of that.
Painfully aware of that.
And DC is no exception. Everything is not going to be at the highest tier, but generally speaking, DC does a lot of quality work. So this movie was under an hour, and it feels like, it was kind of thrown together. They had a really good voice cast. So let's talk about the voice cast for just a second.
Shout
Because
out to Dante Basco.
yeah,
First
they
and
they
foremost.
they pulled out some heavy hitters for this.
Mhm.
So as far as the voices that I recognized, Karate Kid was Zuko and American Dragon Jake Long and Dante Basco. Like I can call him by his real name. Um, but some of the voices that I recognized, Flash was Wally from Young Justice.
I thought that's where that voice was from.
Yep. So, he's been multiple Flashes at this point. Wonder Woman was Azula,
Yep.
and Wonder
Hmm.
Woman didn't do a bunch of talking. So, Um, speaking of Avatar, Robin was Sokka.
Robin was, you know what? They just kind of redid the whole Avatar gang over here, didn't they?
I mean, I think it was just those three. I'm not sure if they used anyone else. Aquaman sounded like Gara to me. I don't know for a fact
Uh,
that it was Gara, but Aquaman sounded like Gara to me.
I can't confirm that one. I'd have to do some research.
Um, Batman was Diedrich, and I like him. He's Batman Brave and the Bold, and he's kind of just very randomly. He's Batman in the Harley Quinn show, and yeah, I like him as Batman. He's not on my like list of favorites, but he's a good comedic Batman.
I was about to say, like, his voice in general makes me laugh. So when he makes certain catchphrases, I'm just like, okay, we got some random multiverse Batman up in here.
Yeah, and that's fine. And then Kevin Michael Richardson, of course, he was in here. He was Black Manta, I know. I'm sure he was
Yes,
other
indeed.
people, but yeah, I love Kevin Michael Richardson. He can do whatever he wants. But
Oh,
uh
100%.
what were your thoughts on the art style for this movie?
All right, so the art style I had another problem with,
Okay.
and don't get me wrong, I am all for change. I am all for mixing it up every now and then, but DC has some very, very good art styles in other projects, and this one was not one of them for me. Just off the rip. Every JLA Justice League art style should have a very distinct big three. That is Wonder Woman, that is Superman, that is Batman. Guaranteed, every time. They should be unique in their appearance, but not stray too far away. I have a hard time believing Superman's art style was done on purpose. And I slowed down the video later on and caught a glimpse of a transition where they legit drew two dots for eyes as he was in space. I don't know if you caught that or not. I paused, I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute. They just completely because he's chiseled chin, he's big, buff, and bold, a little goofy looking in the face, if you ask me. But I just not a fan, not a fan at all. Batman was solid. I will give Batman all the credit. That was a nice suit. And Wonder Woman, I mean, it's really kind of hard to mess up Wonder Woman unless you just kind of go all types of crazy. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but that is not what I was looking for. Also, did you notice Cyborg? Did we go for like a future retro throwback thing? Because like,
We can talk about it.
okay,
So first with the big three, I was not a fan of this Wonder Woman at all. Um, I I didn't like this Wonder Woman very much. I didn't hate her. Like, I don't think that the only way I'm gonna hate Wonder Woman is if they do like the 50s, like, back in the day when women couldn't like really do anything because
yeah, that
that's
makes
just not how
sense.
but like Wonder Woman, at least in the last 30 years, has usually been done pretty well. But I can't say that I was just a fan of this Wonder Woman, looks wise. Batman, I agree. Batman was pretty good, and yeah, Superman was funny looking. I didn't love this art style. What I think happened was this movie was made in a period of time when they were making movies for adults, and this movie is very for children. And I think that it can be done. We have seen with all of the DC animated stuff, Justice League, Superman the animated series. Like we have seen, even with Teen Titans, we've seen that stuff made for kids can be excellent quality.
100%. Not this.
Um, but yeah, like this was, I can safely say that this was not it. But again, this came in a time period whenever they were definitely more focused on making movies for adults. Like this is post Flashpoint Paradox. And so like we are like we're at the beginnings, but we are very much in the DC animated movie universe with
Correct.
the continued movies that are just so good. So yeah, this was a little offshoot, and I would agree. I don't think that this needed to happen. I think that the two main characters looked good, Karate Kid and Dawnstar, but I didn't love the big three. I also didn't love Robin's look in
Oh
this.
my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I was about to be like, Robin just went full panic at the disco. Like like somebody get their goth child, not a phase, out of that suit. He no, ain't no way. And then he's playing what do you call it? In the show, he was playing I guess was it a digital board game or some type of thing? I guess
Something
just
like that, yeah.
update my tanks. I've never seen Robin that much of a side character in a movie. That's a first.
Well, and I'm not sure which Robin this is. I think it was Dick because he was using a staff, but
Yeah.
I don't know for sure which Robin this was. So,
I mean, it's safe to say that most of these movies. Well, no, no, no. Staff. It could be Tim Drake.
because he's dressed like Teen Titans Robin, and I'm pretty sure Teen Titans Robin is Dick. But I assumed it was Dick, but that doesn't super matter.
No,
But yeah, but him like being defiant at the beginning of the movie, like that's a very Jason thing to do.
that is a. You're right about that. That is a very Jason thing to do.
So who knows? But yeah, I gotta say, like as far as art styles that we have seen through this entire journey, this is absolutely on the lower end.
Yeah.
I cannot say that I was a fan of the art style, generally speaking. Who looked really good was Toyman. Like
I
Toyman
was
looked really
wondering.
good.
Yeah, yeah. That was the way they did the villains. Toyman was top tier. I wasn't a big fan of Cheetah. She's definitely been drawn a lot. Not to say that she's got to be provocative, but essentially her character's a little provocative, and that they just missed the mark fully with that one.
Yeah, this I don't know if this is my least favorite version of Cheetah, but I definitely didn't like it. But I
Definitely looked
mean,
more monster. Oh, and speaking of Bizarro, uh, he's supposed to kind of resemble Superman, but like it's
no,
so
Bizarro.
night and day.
I think Bizarro was appropriate because
You think?
Bizarro usually looks like a disheveled zombie version of Superman, and I think they did that.
Did he have black eyes? I can't remember. Let's see. Did he have black
I'm
eyes?
pretty sure he did.
Okay, well that's fine.
Or at least the whites of his eyes were black, I think.
Yeah,
Or he just
yeah,
had like
that's what
really
it is.
deep bags. I don't know. Um, but yeah, and Grodd looked good. but
Grodd did look good. Yes.
and Black Manta looked good.
Hmm.
But I would say those two are hard to mess up in this case because Lex also had a weird face.
Yeah, and so like they vary with Lex Luthor's style, but they tend to stay very consistent as far as like he's basically a human Superman as far as how his body is drawn, because he's very muscular and whatnot. But the man looks like
Sometimes.
he doesn't have a neck.
Well, sometimes I think there are two pretty distinct versions of Lex. There's the Lex that is, yes, like a jacked up, like almost on steroids version of Lex, and then there's the Lex that's just very much like he leans more into the nerd Lex than the swole Lex. So
Ah,
I've seen Lex do both. I think that as far as live action, they've definitely leaned toward nerd Lex, but when you look at Justice League, Superman the Animated Series, when you look at uh Batman, Superman, Public Enemies, like there are versions of Lex that are like swole and aggressively masculine.
which makes sense because he's literally throwing hands with weapons and stuff like that. But he'd be throwing hands sometimes.
Yeah. But I mean usually they put like Lex is in a giant suit, like a giant green and purple suit. So they can kind of do whatever they want with Lex, but I think there are two distinct versions of Lex, and one of them is the more muscular one, but I feel like more often we see the less muscular, more like they don't make him as physically large and imposing because they want to lean into the brilliant billionaire like how they never make Tony Stark super muscular. Like he might be in shape, but he's not physically
Yeah,
imposing.
that makes
Um,
sense.
I think they lean more toward that with Lex, actually. I've seen that version of Lex more often. Again, with the live action versions, Gene Hackman, Kevin Spacey, even fucking Jesse Eisenberg, or the dude from Two and a Half Men, like those leaned toward a smaller Lex that was more capitalist, more intelligent, more scientist.
Yes, gotcha. I
But
agree.
yeah, this Lex, I mean, we didn't really see his body. We didn't really need to, but yeah, like he spent most of the movie in a coat.
Holding an hourglass.
Yes, but you know, that's fine. So, talking through the movie, we open with we're in the ice, and there's crypto rays that are just expanding the ice caps, and the Legion of Doom is kind of like, what are we doing? Like, I thought we were melting the ice, and Lex is like, absolutely not. We are, you know, expanding the polar ice caps, which is going to change the sea level. Like he explains the whole plan, really, to the Legion, but also to us, so that we know like why we're doing this. And Superman is like, yeah, that's a really cool plan, but we're gonna have to stop you. And the whole league arrives. And Superman is like, A, we need some people to go out into space to handle the fucking lasers that are happening. So Batman, Cyborg on me, everybody else handle the stuff down here. So they get to fighting, and people kind of pick their arch nemesis to an extent. Aquaman fights Black Manta, Wonder Woman fights Cheetah, Flash fights Grodd. So, just pretty standard fare there. And then whenever they go up into space, we see that up there we have Toyman, Captain Cold, and Bizarro. Because one of the things I was wondering before we saw that they were up there, I was like, so the people in space, like, what are we gonna do? Like, how are they going to, hold off the Justice League? When I saw Bizarro, I was like, ah, that's how. Because you're going to need a heavy hitter up there that can breathe in space.
100%.
And again, we see Toyman, we see Captain Cold, and Captain Cold kind of behaved more like I would think Mr. Freeze would in this, but
Hmm.
usually, the colds are somewhat interchangeable.
I was kind of confused by that, just because they were freezing the ice caps. Now, I had a question for you. To your best DC knowledge, has Mr. Freeze ever been a Justice League villain? I know Captain Cold has due to the Flash, but has Mr. Freeze ever just entered in the Justice League's territory or in the Legion of Doom? I can't remember off the top of my
I
head.
As far as my experience goes, no. I think the only time I've seen Mr. Freeze doing like group activity is in like Young Justice when all
Uh,
of the Colds were together. So Mr. Freeze, Captain Cold, Killer Frost, like all of them were together. Otherwise, Mr. Freeze is not really involved with this because Mr. Freeze's whole thing is that he's trying to save Nora. And so usually all of the evil stuff that he does is in the name of saving his wife. So he's not a bad dude. He just does bad things because he's got like his own agenda.
that's true. Okay. So in this reality where, they're trying to lower the sea level. Is it lower the sea level or raise the sea level? I thought they were lowering the sea level because they're adding
Um,
more ice.
yeah. Honestly, I forget which way that because I was like, it doesn't matter. They're not gonna.
They're not going to get to it anyway.
Yeah. So I just remember they were trying to expand polar ice caps,
Ah.
and
But
that
no,
was
it does.
going to affect things. But yeah. So, um, while they are up in space, four of the five satellites are destroyed, and Captain Cold is furious. Like he's like, they're destroying my creations. This is bullshit. So let me go ahead and super ice beam on this one. And super ice beam comes down, and again, it seemingly kills Lex Luthor. So we are then taken to the 31st century, and we see Karate Kid and Dawnstar, and they're complaining that they're not members of the Legion of Superheroes. Now, there are several items where we have seen the Legion of Superheroes. We see them in Justice League Unlimited. We've seen them in they kind of have their own movie with the Tomorrowverse that Supergirl is in. We generally speaking, the Legion of Superheroes have been shown on the screen before. Now, with Dawnstar and Karate Kid, I have seen both of them before, but never in a very prominent role. So I think that this is probably the most minutes either of them get across DC, uh, at least animation and live action.
I'd have to agree because even in like the comic books, I think there's like a reference for Karate Kid back in like the I don't know 60s or 50s or something like that. But I don't ever remember seeing him in modern Legion comic books, even as like a cameo character, where he's just
Yeah.
in like the background of something. So yeah, this is the most screen time they've ever gotten.
And he may look very different than this because I feel like I have seen, I don't know if it was necessarily Karate Kid because whenever you just kind of have a martial arts guy in a group, then they kind of all run together at a certain point. So I remember seeing a background character that may have been Karate Kid because he was in a gi and he had shorter hair. And I know I've seen Dawn Star and stuff because she's pretty specific. I feel like there was something else I saw her in where her wings weren't physical like Hawkman's wings. They were not necessarily virtual, but they would like disappear and reappear as she needed them. So um they would appear behind her whenever she was actually flying, and then whenever she would land, the wings would like disappear. So it was like she was manifesting the wings and then like putting them away. But they looked like
Energy
uh
projections or something like
yeah, like
that.
they look like energy as opposed to like Falcon's wings where they're like physical wings that like
Yeah.
retract. They look like energy projected wings. I feel like that I've seen that with her before, but I'm not 100% sure what I saw that in. But I do know usually when I see Dawn Star, her hair is longer. But
A
that's,
lot longer actually.
yeah. And so, yeah, I think that this is the most minutes these two get. And one of the things that I think Brandon usually brings up is sometimes he likes it and sometimes he doesn't. Whenever they just like reach deep in the bag and they pull like a D-list character, I think that he usually leans toward, no, I don't want to see that shit.
I
And
can't
so
blame him though.
yeah, like this is a situation where I think he would be like, "Who the fuck are these people? And why are they here? What are we doing?" Because DC has a very deep bag, and there are a lot of people they can pull from.
Almost every time they update the encyclopedia, they're adding hundreds of pages. So
Yeah, and I almost wonder. at what point in the encyclopedia these two would show up? Because you know how there are some people that get, they're a full page of everything that they're in, and then there are some people that just get like a paragraph that's mixed with a bunch of other people in the encyclopedias. I'm wondering if Dawnstar and Karate Kid like have a section in the encyclopedias. The encyclopedia that I have is much older. It's almost 10 years old. I think I have the 2015 encyclopedia. And Dawnstar does not have a blurb. Like she is not mentioned.
I can tell you in the one that I have, which is 2008, not in there at all. So
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
definitely a newer New 52 character.
Yeah. And in my 2015 version, Karate Kid does have a section, but yeah, it's not they're not, headlining anything.
Might have been a side character in like one of the random adventures that they decided just to give more traction to. Like, you know what? Let's expand here. Let's see what we can go with this.
Yeah, because I mean, even in the Justice League Unlimited episodes that featured the Legion of Superheroes, I don't remember seeing either of them as background characters because sometimes there will be people that are around but don't have lines. Like in Justice League versus the Fatal Five, I'm pretty sure that one of them is in it because that movie heavily features the Legion of Superheroes and they may just have unspoken parts, but I wasn't
You,
looking for them.
you know, Dawnstar might actually be in there. I think with
Perhaps.
like with the longer hair, because I don't I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but maybe because she had like bluish wings or something like that.
Yeah, those are the wings that I have in my mind. Is like the wings are blue and like almost Green Lantern style, like virtual, and then
Hmm.
they like hard light wings and they go away.
Yeah.
But since we are talking about them, how did you feel about them, like those two characters carrying this movie? Like, what were your thoughts on them as the leads here? Because they are not on any of the cover art.
They're
Because
not.
they're not gonna draw anybody. So the cover art has the big three, but this movie is about John Star and Karate Kid primarily. Like they're who we spend the most time with, and they are the ones who actually do the work to, they're the reason the movie happens because they're the ones who broke Lex out. They're the ones who went back and they're able to explain the situation. Like they're the reason we're here. So how do you feel about them leading the movie?
From a just straight viewer's perspective, again, shout out to Dante Basco. That is the only reason it captured my attention. From a story writing perspective, I think it's a little random that these characters that couldn't get into the Legion, as he made a little quip about in the very beginning. I think it's one of those random one-offs where they're just hanging out and it just so happens they cause all this mess. Actually, I don't even think they cause it. The original ice cracking, was that Karate Kid?
Yeah, he
Is it?
absolutely did that.
Oh, well, so a random one off of mistakes led us down this path. I think it's fine. Um, I think that the writers did a fairly decent job by incorporating a lot more of Justice League fighting. As far as story progression goes, it was definitely Dawn Star and Karate Kid pushing the story forward and also tying in some loose ends, like at the end of the movie. Also, you see they try to leave a little cliffhanger at the end. That's wild.
They,
Um,
we'll talk about that. Don't worry. Do
but
not worry. We're gonna talk about that.
I think it's fine. I think for how light of a story that this is, even though they're trying to like essentially erase Superman from existence, that it's cool. It does naturally lead it. It does fill in some little gaps where they just happen to go, aha, I guess we can do this now. I think in a corny little way, it does progress the story forward. I was fine with it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, how you know it was for kids was Lex didn't say to do anything to Superman. He just said to like throw him back into space.
Yes, that big point. I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, this is a very PG response. Normally, he's just like
Very
vaporize
PG.
the whole crib, vaporize the ship. In fact, throw
Yeah,
it into the sun.
because and we will talk about it when we get there. But so right now in the movie, Karate Kid is complaining that he and Dawnstar are not members of the Legion of Superheroes, and they're in the museum, just looking through stuff. And they find Lex Luthor's body frozen. And they talk about how in the 2800s is when they find it. And, he was the world's greatest supervillain, yada, yada, yada. And Karate Kid and his hubris is like, I should break this ice right now and and just beat his ass. He's, talking about being the greatest superhero. He can't handle me, doing all that shit.
Hmm.
And Don Star's like, we don't have to do that. Like, it's fine. And then he's like, there's a weak point in this ice right here. And he does the whole like, see, look at how skilled I am. I stopped just an inch short. I have that much control. I have that much power. And I am him, is basically what he's saying. And so he, the ice breaks, and Lex just immediately wakes up. I guess it's real warm in there.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we just waking up from cryo,
Yeah.
fully okay.
And
Somebody tell Mr. Freeze.
you've been frozen for 1,000 years. Like he'd been frozen like the amount of time that Fry was frozen in Futurama. Like,
Hmm.
and again, he just gets up and he's like, "Oh, where am I?" And then he starts seeing some other things in the room, some of the other, you know, Legion of Doom paraphernalia. And he's like, "Oh, I must have been frozen for 1,000 years." And then in the museum, he's like, Kent, Clark Kent. So he learns Superman's secret identity, and then he uses the cold gun, which he's eavesdropping because Dawnstar and Karate Kid are, looking at the hourglass, the eternity hourglass thing, and kind of talking about how this can allow you to go anywhere in time, yada yada, blase blase. And Lex is like, "Oh, perfect. That's exactly what I need." So he freezes those two and he gets the hourglass, and the time trapper shows up. And, he speaks in very old English. So we know that he's been around for a long, long time. And he's like, "What do you want? I'll take you anywhere you want to go." And it's so funny that Lex was saying, like, "I want to go here." Actually, here to be specific is like, Lex, you weren't specific at all.
Not at all.
You
How
just,
do we
you
get
just
straight
said,
there?
Lex was like, "I want to go in the past, the 21st century to be exact." It's like, I'm gonna need you to narrow that a little bit, but
Hmm.
whatever. Obviously, the time trapper knows your heart. And so the time trapper's like, "All right, I will take you there." And Dawnstar has a moment where she could like dagger his ass, but she doesn't. Fear strikes her, and she's not ready to play with big dogs yet. So she is able to free herself. She frees Karate Kid, and I guess these portals just linger for a while, which is really convenient. Like, glad that's a thing. And so they jump into the portal. Now, whenever Lex arrives, Bizarro and Solomon Grundy are just there, chilling because they're lost. They don't know what to do,
And
and that made sense. Like those
yeah,
two characters do need to be led.
correct. It was like Grundy doesn't know what Grundy need to do or not do.
Yeah. And Bizarro was like, everybody left, so I stayed because I do the opposite. That's my whole thing.
What's crazy is that like that's probably the one part of Bizarro's character that makes the most sense. Hey, we're all leaving. So will Bizarro. And
Yep.
scenes.
And so Lex arrives and, he just starts talking. He says, "Summon the Legion of Doom. I have things to do." And while that's happening, Dawnstar and Karate Kid are, in the room talking. And my thought is, Bizarro probably has super hearing. Probably. Safe to assume.
He could have the opposite.
He's not deaf. Like he can converse. But the fact that he
Interesting.
has super strength like Superman, like the fact that he has Superman's abilities, generally speaking, I would assume he has super hearing. I should have probably looked into it. But Bizarro probably should have heard them talking, but the movie's gotta happen.
Yeah, movies gotta happen.
Because they were talking like just kind of just talking. Like they were whispery, I guess, but like no, I would have heard you. But anyway. And the time trapper's like, "Hey, real quick though, I would really appreciate it if you could set me free. Like, that would be great."
It's like, do you know who I am? Of course there's a catch.
And Lex was like, I don't think I will. I choose slavery for you. So you will serve me because I'm Lex Luthor. That's just what it's gonna be.
He's got the
And
chains on already.
and if you know anything about me, you wouldn't have even asked that dumbass question. But yeah. So they're like, okay, Dawnstar and Karate Kid are like, we need to find some real heroes. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing I forgot to mention. Whenever this is how I knew that I was like, oh, this movie might be real corny. Is whenever Karate Kid did break Lex Luthor out, he said, "Hey,
Oh my gosh.
like
I have full on bellowed. I
he
said,
did an actual yeah, and I was like, okay,
playing on stereotypes because Karate Kid is like literally Japanese in the comic books. So like
uh-huh.
I get it, but like damn. Did we really have to do that?
Did he have to actually yeah? Like that we
No.
had to like okay, whatever, I that's the moment I was like, okay, this is for children, and there's gonna be some corny shit in this movie, and I'm just gonna have to make peace with that.
100%.
And so they are like, all right, we need to find some grown-ups because we are not going to be able to do. We're not even Legion members, so we're gonna need to find somebody who can actually, handle this situation. And so they're like, hey, where are your teleportation pods? And the taxi driver is like, where do you want to go? The Hall of Justice, perhaps? And they were like, how the fuck you know where we're trying to go? What's this? And he was like, obviously your costumes. Like pretty clear, like context clue there. And I was like,
Hmm.
that's funny. I don't hate that.
It's a great
And
way to
so
tie it in naturally.
yeah. And so they sit through traffic and he takes them to the Hall of Justice and they were like, thank you so much. And he was like, where's my money? Where are my greenbacks?
These
And they
costumes
were
have
like,
pockets.
yeah, they were like, we don't have any of that. We don't know what you're talking about. What I will do though, I'll bless your taxi. And she blesses the taxi and then it just starts, driving off. It just starts floating. And honestly, that was also kind of funny.
How concerning though, in like a realistic situation, if you're the taxi driver going like, so how do I come down?
Yeah, like I would have had some logistical issues with how that whole process went. But
Hmm.
whatever, that's fine. And so instead of, getting into the Hall of Justice, a reasonable way, they fucking break through a wall
Which
because
is so comical.
Karate Kid doesn't know how to control himself, clearly. And this is when Robin was, playing the video game, just, upgrading his tanks and whatnot.
Hmm.
And I love that Robin was about it. Like the moment they got in there, Robin, intruders, and just started going. I was like,
Hands,
I was like,
staff.
Good, Robin, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. And that is the thing that makes me think it might have been Jason. Because Jason, if there are hands to be thrown, he gonna throw them.
The first one. If he doesn't shoot you, he's throwing something.
Yeah, and this is too like he hadn't been crowbarred yet, so this is he's not shooting anybody just yet. But yeah, that was the scene where I was like, okay, I think it's Dick because of the staff, but like it could be Jason because he said no, we don't immediately, no discussion, no none of that. He just said intruders and started going, and I was like, good. And Don Star's trying really hard to, just, hey, I just want to talk to you. And she keeps getting like smacked up every time she's trying to be polite. And
Which
one
is
of the things that I will say, I don't know if this is a situation where Karate Kid isn't really as bad as he says he is, and he's still working up to that. Like this is clearly a version of Karate Kid that still has some growing and learning to do because that's a part of why he's not in the Legion and he eventually grows to be the baddest motherfucker in the room. Or if Robin is just cold, but like if Karate Kid is supposed to basically be like an Iron Fist level fighter, if he's supposed to be like Lady Shiva type shit, like Bronze Tiger. Like he's supposed to be up there with them. He's supposed to be like the pinnacle, the greatest hand-to-hand combatant across centuries. Robin should he the fight shouldn't have been as even as it was.
No, it shouldn't. It's a little concerning for, I guess, power scaling, if you want to go that power scaling anyway. The Bat Family is top tier in hands because, fun fact, I just researched really quickly what Karate Kid's powers are, quote unquote. And the very first thing, the main power, the number one, master of all forms of martial arts up to the 31st century. Huh? If you've mastered everything from the past, master. And Robin out here, Robin, not Batman, not Bruce,
Robin. Yeah.
Robin.
Teen Robin, not Nightwing. Robin.
Oh, is putting them hands on you. Oh, that Bat Family's OP. That Bat Family is OP. I just, you know what? If you get trained by Bruce as a regular individual, you're gonna die, or you'll come out the master of all things, hand to hand. Because yeah, no, I was confused. Robin got that staff out, and I'm like, okay, block, block, weave, block. He should be over in like 5 hits. No, Karate Kid was getting beat up.
Yeah.
Ah,
Like Robin was touching him. And I was like, this, I mean, I understand, again, the movie needs to happen. And I'm under the impression that narratively, it speaks to Karate Kid's immaturity. Because if Karate Kid is able to do all of that, like chi focusing and like do all of the things that were implied, like if he's able to, the feat that he has later, like when he sees the weak point in the ice and he breaks 21 Century Lex out, the fact that he was able to break 31 Century Lex out of a giant brick of ice without touching it means that he should have put, like Robin should not have stood a chance against him.
and he's
And
got the cheat code of the visionary weak points, right?
yeah, now he's got to turn that on or whatever. And along with that, um Karate Kid, this does not seem like a character that had the maturity to hold back against Robin. Like, if this was a situation where he was, making a conscious decision that's like, hey, we just want to talk, and he was just defending himself, that would be one thing. But that's not what I got from this scene or this character. He was trying to actually fight Robin, and Dawnstar was the one who was trying to say, hey, we just want to talk. But because you know how sometimes when Batman is fighting somebody, he's not actually fighting, he's just defending himself.
Right. It's like
But then,
self-defense.
yeah, but then it like in Batman versus Robin, like Damien is trying to kill him, and he's just trying to like, hey, not get hit. And then eventually, once Damien touches him, he's like, all right, fine.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah. Same thing happens in Bad Blood whenever he's fighting Nightwing. He's, just kind of defending himself like, can't touch me. And then Nightwing like gets him one good time, and then Batman's like, okay. And then puts the paws on him. And so this is not that situation. Like it looked to me like Karate Kid was actually fighting Robin. And if that's true, then this Robin is a bad motherfucker
Oh yeah.
because like this should not have been this close
Man, when he hit him with
contextually.
the best, I don't know, like I don't know what about you, and I kind of want to know what your ideal part of this fight scene was because it had some great animated choreographed hits because
It was choreographed pretty well.
when he hit him with that uppercut into the backflip, into the perfect landing, I was like, oh, this Robin. Call, wait a minute. Took it on the chin and landed. Okay.
Yeah, I think for me that was the moment. I was like, oh, okay. Because this is not a movie that I expected to have excellent fight choreography. And
Mhm.
of course, we've seen much better.
Oh yeah.
But this movie came at a time period where the fight choreography was cooking. Because like you based on when this movie came out, like if the fight choreography wasn't excellent, like it wasn't gonna get very far. Like this has reached a point in the timeline where you have to have at least pretty good fight choreography.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Otherwise, like the storyline itself is not going to keep your attention. So you got to have something in there.
Yeah. And honestly, this was probably the best fight in the movie.
Yeah, because after that, it was just bruiser hands. You know what I mean? Like the DC goes through, and I'm sure if I rewatch some Marvel stuff, they probably would as well. But DC goes through this period in most of their movies that are not Batman included, that are just brawler fights. And like, while that's cool, you get tired of seeing Superman just punching people across the screen to punch people across the screen. Oh, they punch him back. There's not like a duck, a weave, a counter. There's nothing like that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that last like little fight section later, but they are throwing hands, and again, it's I think that maybe this whole scene was speaking to the fact that they're all angsty teenagers, and again, they don't have everything that they need in this situation because Dawnstar was trying to be peaceful and kept getting smacked up, and then later she was like, "You have no manners," and then yeah, that whole thing, which was ridiculous, but the movie's got to happen. And again, clearly, uh, that spoke to the whole like children are the target audience for this one specifically.
Hmm.
And maybe children were the target audience for this one because the rest of them were made for us, made for the grown folks that need to see some blood and some killing.
Because there's definitely some heavy hitters in this
So yeah, they
animated
had to
series.
squeeze a couple kids moments or a couple kids movies in here because we gotta hit all audiences. So that this one's for the family, the whole family. But the big three arrive, and Wonder Woman is like, "All right, I'll get to the bottom of this," and lasso of truth time. So Dawnstar is like, "I've never told a lie ever," and Karate Kid's like, to the point where she probably should. Like, she's a little too honest. I was like, that's adorable. I don't hate that. And so they start telling, what's going on, and Lex is explaining the same thing to the Legion of Doom. And then Lex says, Grodd, Captain Cold, and Black Manta are bitches. All three of them. How dare they not show up when I summon them? They are like he just called them everything but children of God. And yeah, he called them cowards and weak, spineless, and yeah, just called them out their name. I was like, all right. I mean, they all have their own things going on, and they're all capable of, running their own lives without needing Lex. So, okay. And then later, when we find out what they were doing, I was like, Lex, you owe them an apology.
Hey, we're actually looking for you.
Yeah, yeah. Lex, and you're not going to be you owe those men an apology because they were really out here trying to find you. But anyway, um, he summons the League, tells them the deal, and Superman summons the League, and we see that Lex has decided, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop the Kents from getting Superman. Now, David, as a man of strategery, I'm sure that you had some other or better ideas for how that could have gone a little differently. Is that what you would have done, or would you have done something a little different?
This movie is for kids. My plans are rated R. I'm kidnapping Superman and I'm training him myself to be the perfect super soldier because then his morals will align with me and he'll end up like an Omni-Man. This is your one job, sir. You are born for this. Kryptonians are meant for war. Do what I say.
Okay. And that's kind of where my mind was is like, instead of if the Kents don't raise him, like Lex, you could just raise him yourself and then he'll be yours. Now, the only, counter to that is in Superman Red Sun, we see a Superman that is raised by Joseph Stalin, and that, doesn't go all the way in Stalin's favor by the like end of the first act of the movie. And so,
Communism.
and again, like I would venture to guess that Lex is not against killing a baby. Now, I think that throwing Superman back into space was essentially killing a baby, but they couldn't say that because whenever you have, a children's movie, there are certain rules you got to follow. And I think that killing a baby would have been a little too far for this rating of film.
Though, when
But
you
to
throw
just chunk
babies
him
into
back into
space,
space,
See, time gets weird in space because technically Superman is old, but when you throw him into space as a kid, you don't know what time period he's landing on a planet. So he could circle right back around to Earth 1,000 years later as a baby. Does that work that way? I'm not quite sure.
And there are a lot of ways this could have happened. Like Superman could have ended up anywhere and ended up, but because there are aliens on Earth, which means that Superman could find his way back here if like there are a lot. So what I thought they were going to do, like whenever Lex was saying, I will just go back into the past and stop Superman from, I thought he was going to kill the Kents.
That definitely do it.
Like
That would
I
definitely do it.
thought that was going to be the plan, was to just get rid of the Jonathan and Martha. But when that wasn't the plan, I was like, oh, okay. But you know, the movie's got to happen.
Movies gotta happen.
And so he's explaining, yeah, the first thing we're going to do is stop the Kents from raising Superman, and that is going to guarantee that he doesn't become Superman, the League never forms, and that's just what it's going to be. Because Superman was the clear leader and founder in this. We often see situations where it's Batman's idea to form the League. We see situations where the League kind of just comes together on its own through a large threat. And this is a situation where it's like, no, Superman was the OG. He was the founder. He was the reason that the League came together. So I think that again was so that the movie narratively made sense, but also it's very easy to say, Superman is the leader, and that's easy for children to understand. And like conceptually, that's something that they can process without too much of an issue.
That makes sense.
So the portal opens, back on the farm in Kansas when Superman is a baby, and the Legion of Doom go through it. So Cheetah, Solomon Grundy, Bizarro, and Toyman make their way to the past. And Cyborg, Aquaman, and the Flash follow them. Now, whenever they arrive, I was like, this ain't gonna be good for Aquaman because there is not a single drop of
Drop
water.
of water. Oh my gosh. They went in a literal hayfield.
Yeah,
There's
they
no
are
water
in
anywhere.
the middle of a giant landlocked continent. Like, I hope Aquaman hydrated before he got here because there's not a single drop of water for miles. And so, just as the Kents are finding the baby, because the Legion arrives and we see this really old lady at a store, and it's looking like Cheetah is about to get violent with her. And I was thinking, like, that can't be Martha Kent because she's too old. Like,
I
that,
initially thought it was, though. Not gonna
yeah, and I think
lie.
that's what we were supposed to think. But Solomon Grundy and Cheetah show up just as the Kents find the baby, and they're like, "Oh, you found our baby." And the Kents are like, "Y'all are weird." Like the vibe check does not get passed. And the Kents are like, "You know what? We can't really argue against this being." So they reluctantly hand the baby over because they were kind of like, "Well, why is this baby in a spaceship? Like, what are we doing?"
This entire exchange was the funniest part of the whole movie to me. The amount of just blank stare. Okay, man, that was weird. I say drive off. I was like, wait. You just gave clearly monster-looking people an infant that you thought
But
was cute when you picked it up.
But I think that's what was funny about it to me was that whole exchange pretty realistic. Like I think for a lot of people that's how that would have gone. Like if you found a random baby and then there were people, regardless of how weird or off they were, claiming that that was their baby, and they clearly already knew about the baby and they had, terrible but reasonable explanations for the things. I mean, you might just feel like I don't like it, but okay.
Are you giving them the baby if they don't pass the vibe check, Spencer?
That's the problem is I'd have to be in that situation because if they don't pass the vibe check, then I'm going to be like, this is weird. I don't like it. I need to protect this baby. But on the flip side of that coin, if those really are their parents, who am I to keep this baby from his family? And that's the thing. Like, I don't know any better. Again, yes, these people look weird as fuck. But if these people are really their parents, I'm not trying to catch kidnapping charges because I refused to give this baby to his actual parents.
You know what? And that's fair. And also Solomon Grundy at the end of that exchange kind of mushed them into the truck.
Yeah, and was
And
like,
his
have a great day.
and his entire hand is the size of that man's torso. So I guess it is kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that I wouldn't have, like, I would have had some discussion, like, me and the bride would have had to been like, was that weird as fuck, or was that just me? We would have talked about it. And then I'm
Definitely would have talked.
sure, um, my wife would have offered up some prayers for that baby because she's a good Christian woman.
Shout out to Shaniqua.
But they surrender the baby, and luckily the league shows up. So there's a bunch of fighting that happens. The a bunch of hijinks with the baby. Baby's getting tossed around, and you know, they basically said, "Don't forget, Cyborg played football," because they gave him all the football references.
They sure did.
Like he called a fumble. One thing that was funny was he definitely hit Cheetah with a move, bitch. That was hilarious to me.
Oh yeah, hit that Heisman real quick.
Like she got a hit stick. And I guess Cheetah wasn't as fast as a cheetah because he absolutely outran her. She got move bitched, and then yeah, he caught the baby.
I'm really confused by that though. Honestly, like the whole trend. I know in good writing, because guys, I refer to anime a lot when I do this because anime is amazing. At the same time, these hero villain things are all about matchups, and Sheeta should be running circles around Cyborg, even with him having a jetpack, boosters, all that stuff. It's a human in a cheetah form. That's how fast are cheetahs again? Is it 60 miles per hour?
60, yeah.
Yeah, no, ain't no way.
And you know, I don't know what Cyborg's top speed is, but it's at least peak human athlete, but I would imagine that since he is a cyborg, he can run pretty fast. And it would make sense to say that, the cybernetic human could run faster than the organic cheetah lady. But anyway, whatever, the movie's got to happen. Ain't nobody outrunning Flash. So
Hmm.
Flash gets that baby, returns it to the Kents, and is like, hey, raise this baby to be a wonderful person. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And whenever they open the baby, it's a Toyman decoy, and they're like, oh shit. So yeah, that was definitely an issue.
Ultimate sleight of hand.
And so the real baby is with Bizarro, and Bizarro puts him in the spaceship and then just hurls that thing into space.
Man,
And it goes into deep space. Like it's clearly left our galaxy, and yeah, like Bizarro threw that thing. And so the time trapper is like, okay, guess what, Superman? You don't exist anymore. There's an anomaly. There's a paradox. And that allows me to banish you. So Superman gets banished to the Shadow Realm. And then he's like, and P.S., the rest of the League also gets banished to the Shadow Realm. Now, I thought that was weird because my thought is like, these people still exist, but them getting banished, the movie's got to happen because
yeah.
like Bruce Wayne still happened. The Amazons were here long before Superman was. The Atlanteans were here long before Superman was. I mean, they're not together, but they still exist. But I said, you know what? Children probably that's too much for, under an hour runtime.
As you
So
say, the movie's got to happen.
the movie's got to happen. And so, because honestly, like Lex wouldn't be the person he is without Superman.
You know, I thought about that too. I was like, wait a minute. Then Lex is a paradox, and the Legion of Doom is a paradox. Everybody disappears at that point.
Yeah, because there's no Legion of Doom if there's no League. And, the movie's got to happen. So whatever, it's fine. The Legion of Doom is free to do whatever they want, and they just start like ruining stuff. Like we see Solomon Grundy like deface the Lincoln Memorial, just doing shit.
Just random
Yeah, just
random
random,
stuff.
yeah, just random destroy, just, again, for kids, it's like, yes, the villains are just going to start destroying things. That is what villains do. Like there are no governments being toppled or, whatever.
Mhm.
So Dawnstar and Karate Kid are like, well, we fucked up. This is why we're not in the Legion because, we're not good enough. We make mistakes. And Dawnstar's like, if I would have, put Lex down when I had the chance. And Karate Kid's like, well, if I wouldn't have set him free, and, we're just, taking accountability. And then they're like, oh, wait, I think there's something we can do. The Lex here is still frozen in that ice. And if we find the Lex here, that means that he never makes it to the 31st century, which means that that should handle our problem. And Dawnstar, you happen to be the greatest, tracker ever, like again, across centuries. So if anybody can find him, it's you. And then she's like, and Karate Kid, you can punch him out of that ice because you did it last time. Cool. So she starts, tracking him. And they come across the other members of the Legion. They come across Captain Cold, Grodd, and Black Manta. And they are also looking for Lex. And they're like, hey, we also are trying to find Lex. So we all want the same thing. You are not going to find him without our help because y'all have been dead for hundreds of years before he gets found. So I guarantee you will not find him without our help. And they are like, we're villains, so we're gonna fight you. That's just how it's gotta be.
I swear.
And Karate Kid was able to hang with these three all at once. And you're fighting against a gorilla who's several times stronger than a human. You're fighting against Black Manta, who can fight, but also has the fucking eye lasers. And so, yeah, he can hang with these three, but Robin was giving him problems.
Again, the Bat family is OP, as we see
Clearly,
time and time again.
that's the moral of the story. And so Dawnstar finally locates Lex and is like, "Hey, I need you to find that weak point." And then this is the feat that I'm like, okay, so Karate Kid can get some shit done. So he should not have struggled the way he did against Robin. Because again, the feat he uh I don't know how many like pounds of pressure what he did would have to have caused, but I'm sure it's absurd. And yeah, the fact that he was able to do that with a punch and destroy like what he was able to do with that one punch, even if it was on a weak point, is
Completely
something that
immobilized them. Oh my God.
like that's a super strength feat at a minimum. So yeah, he one hit to Robin anywhere. Like even if Robin blocked it, he should have shattered his shit. Uh,
Maybe it's because he was playing aggressive defense. I don't know.
I don't know, but he was I it was not represented well if he was actually just trying to play defense and not actually take Robin out. Because again, they go out of their way to mention that he's hot-headed and that he's looking for a fight. Like he wants to throw hands.
I want problems at all times.
Yeah. So he's able to free Lex. And again, whenever Lex was unfrozen after being in the ice for 1,000 years, he kind of just woke up and was fine. This Lex had to be like blessed and holy watered and had to get like the son of Rao to wake him up. And then whenever he does wake up, that's when time trappers start Birdman rubbing his hands together because he's
You're
like,
done.
"Oh yeah, I got you now. You are a paradox. You are an anomaly, and through my power, banished to the Shadow Realm." And so he gets banished, and now his shackles are off. So he's like, "Oh, I'm free." I have no master, so now I will rebuild this world in my image of darkness.
Plot hole for the table. What? When we first see him, is he not by himself with no master? Huh?
Yeah,
Anyway,
he's
soft
just he's
punch.
just in the hourglass. And because he kind of behaves like a genie, like there has to be somebody who activates it, and then he is shackled to that person's will until he's not through whatever means.
Mm.
And so I guess instead of being trapped back into the hourglass this time, he is just free. So whatever, that's fine. And so Karate Kid and Dawnstar, roll up on him. Is like, hey, stop it. We're here to stop you. And he's like, it's too late. I've already started doing shit. There's already a portal in the sky. Like I've already started ruining people's days. I don't know what you think you're gonna do. But it's too late. I've already started. And so, things and people start getting sucked into this portal. And the League arrives. And I was like, okay, so I guess he unbanished them because the anomaly that caused them to be banished isn't a thing, but I have some logistical questions.
I just, it seems like he's a concept at his core versus a character. Like he exists at the end of time, so anything that happens during a very linear timeline, he can erase, but then somehow has a will of his own. What?
And also, I guess future Lex being banished undid them going into the past and throwing Super Baby back into space. Like that just didn't happen anymore. Or was it? Yeah, I don't. Again, I think that the movie's got to happen.
But man, is it confusing on how we get there. At certain points, like, wait a minute. So if Lex is a paradox and he's gone and the superheroes are back, that means you're gone because you're now back in the 31st century. You shouldn't be there. You're self-delete, self-delete.
Yeah, because also my thought was, okay, if future Lex gets deleted, that means that Dawnstar and Karate Kid should just go back to their own time because Lex is the only reason they are there in the first place. Of course, they still, I guess, exist, but if Lex didn't go to the 31st century, they wouldn't be in the 21st century.
And there's no guarantee
So,
that they would exist either.
well, they would exist. I mean, presumably. Like if we look at the whole like butterfly effect thing, then who knows. But it's safe to assume that they would still exist. And again, if Lex doesn't make it to Century 31, they don't make it to Century 21. Period.
Sure.
So that's another thing. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? But whenever time travel is involved, it's never clean. I don't I can't think of a single situation where I walked out of a time travel situation without questions or without saying this doesn't make sense because there probably are examples, but every time travel situation I can think of, I was like, no, here's a thing that either isn't addressed or is poorly or badly explained or just straight up and down doesn't make sense.
Yep, the ever-branching multiverse is the only answer, and it's a shortcut, if we're being honest.
Yeah. So whatever, the movie's got to happen. So sky portals open, shit is happening, and they say to again Cyborg, Aquaman, and Flash, who do a lot of the like heavy lifting in this movie. If you really
Hmm.
think about it,
Oh yeah.
like they do the work in this movie. They are sent to save humans. Like people are having some issues, so we should probably deal with that. And so those three go and help people, and they just start trying to fight Time Trapper, and nothing's working. Like Wonder Woman just kind of goes in and then gets handled immediately. Like, and again, that's the I was like, I don't like this Wonder Woman. Like she got dealt with. It was not an issue. And so Dawnstar's like, hey, you can see weak points. Find one. And he looks and he's like, there are no weak points. He's made of only dark matter. And then he's like, gasp. There's only one person who can harm him. It's you with your bright shining light. You're the only person that can hurt, a being made of dark matter.
How convenient.
Yeah. And then, because she doesn't believe in herself. So he gives her a little pep talk of like, you're great. You can do it. And she finds it within herself. She shines bright like a diamond, and she like just kind of spears him.
Shout out to Talk No Jutsu. It's an anime pun put in there.
Yeah,
Talk No Jutsu will make anybody do anything at any point in time. But yeah,
yeah,
literally spears him.
yeah. Just kind of glows and then flies straight into him. And this makes him drop the hourglass. And whenever they're like, "Hey, get the hourglass," that's what he needs. Robin gets that thing real quick. And again, Robin goat in this movie.
A
Like
hundred percent.
this Robin was too much. Like he even though Batman didn't like it, he's the one who destroyed the satellites.
Yes, he was actually. He said, "Forget this autopilot. Check this out." Stab.
Yeah. Whenever the intruders were in, he was ready. He was more than ready. Like very few people would be that ready. Like most people would have either had questions, wanted to talk about it. No, he said
Hands.
intruders and immediately got to throwing them.
Hands. You know what? That's what do you call it? When people say someone's crashing out or you're having on-site mentality, that is Robin at any point
Yes,
in time.
on the site. He said anybody. He'd been waiting for somebody to come in here, and yeah, he got that real quick. He snatched that thing up, and then whenever he turned that thing upside down, Odu got trapped. But yeah, as soon as they got that hourglass, they put the paws on him.
Let him
Because
get
I
up. Let
guess
him get up. Let him get
yeah, like
up.
him being made of dark magic or dark energy, that didn't matter if he didn't have that hourglass. He
Which
was
is
just
hilarious. Oh my
yeah, I
gosh.
guess without that hourglass, he's just flesh. And so yeah, Batman, bing, 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 bing. Wonder Woman come in, bing, 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 and then Superman does the one big punch, and then he gets absorbed back into the hourglass. So, yay, we win. And Superman is like, I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something. And he's like, oh shit, Lex, we need to go get him. And he goes to get Lex, and Lex is just, freezing.
Which is
Like it's,
hilarious because he's been in ice in both scenarios, but wasn't cold in the beginning of the movie.
yep. But he's been in ice longer this time. And he's like, it's cold as fuck. And, Superman's like, oh, don't worry, we got a nice warm cell for you for crimes against humanity.
Oh.
And I guess Grodd and them ain't shit because it looked like they saw Lex because they were not far from him. But yeah, whenever Lex got captured, they weren't with Lex. Like they were just letting Lex wander in the cold. And then whenever he got captured, they were like, we will get revenge.
Revenge.
And it's like, okay, so Grodd, yeah, y'all ain't shit. Because why wasn't Lex with y'all?
So you have to let him wander around by himself and get caught? That's crazy.
Crazy. But, he swears revenge. And then the Legion, or not the Legion, but Dawnstar and Karate Kid have to return to their own time. Because I'm sure the League is like, we could use people with your skills. You could stay here if you want to. And they're like, no, we have to, get back to our own time. And so they get back, and it's a statue of Lex where the statue of Superman was. And it's like, oh, shit. They did say we could come back anytime, right? Yeah. And I guess, they kind of just had to make peace with the fact that time trappers just gonna be a slave
Because
because
they went right back to using him.
yeah, like they definitely used him to get back to where they were gonna be, and I'm pretty sure they were just gonna put the hourglass away. But then whenever they saw Lex's face, they were like, "Time trapper, come here, boy."
Take us back to the 21st century
Yeah,
again.
you do something for me. And this movie absolutely left itself open for sequels or for part twos or for continuations. As far as I know, this is it. This movie isn't even listed in the official DC animated movies list.
It is not.
And so, yeah, DC was like, No, we're doing grown-up shit. We don't claim this one.
In fact, it's not even like you have to go out of your way to digitally download this because it's not even on Max anymore. Like they've
And
removed
there's a
it.
lot of stuff that's not on Max, and I'm pissed off about it, but that's a conversation for another time. Um, but yeah, this movie, yeah, they kind of just want you to not remember it and, kind of see why.
Fair, absolutely fair. Straight to home video, store it on the shelf. We'll see you never.
Yeah. But um I do think it's interesting that they, wrote this movie to potentially continue, and then again, as far as I know, it did not. But
Honestly, it could have been an episode in the series, or a 2 episode or 3 episode in the series.
yeah,
Pick a
that's
series, throw it
true.
in there.
But I mean, this again, this would need to have resolved, like it would have needed to keep going. But David, scale of 1 to 10, what are you thinking? Now that we've talked through it.
Now that we've talked through it, 4.4. Lost a point.
I
You
see.
pointed out more plot holes. This is not, sorry guys, Darth David is not a fan of this one.
And it's like that sometimes. I try to have people on, like people that have been on multiple episodes are usually either on movies that are like sequels or they're on a movie that's really bad and really good. And not even really bad. Because again, there are movies that are much worse than this one. And this is absolutely on the lower end. Again, it didn't have to get reviewed, but I decided, no, we're gonna talk about it. Because I remember this movie not being great, and I said, no, we have to talk about the good ones, but it's only fair to also talk about the not so good ones.
I had a feeling when you said me what movie we were reviewing, I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
I've seen this before.
And again, we can't all be on all the good ones. So we are, you know, talking through the movies that are not included in the list of DC animation, and we're not going to talk through every single one of them. I handpicked 10 that I wanted to talk about, and this is one that I wanted to talk about because it is pretty different than a lot of the DC animated movies that we've seen in a lot of different ways. It, covers a couple characters that we don't really see much of. Um, and, again, not great. I'm going to give this thing a 5.5.
I was wondering because if it was anything over a five or like anything over a six, I'd probably give you a little bit of a side eye, like, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to give this one a 5.5. I didn't hate it, but definitely can't say I liked it.
What was the I guess your I guess we can both agree that the best part is the Robin fight scene. But what is your go-to moment that was the aha, this movie is trash?
Um, I mean, there were, I think, a few of those. I I don't know. I think Lex's plan may have been when I was officially like, all right, I don't think this is gonna be spectacular. Like whenever Lex said, we're going to stop the Kents from getting Superman, I was like, okay, where are we going? And he said, we'll just throw the spacecraft back into space. I was like, oh, that's that's not what I thought. Stop them from raising him. Okay. I think I understand. They had to make this marketable to the kids. And there are some things that again are marketable to the kids that are excellent, that are masterpieces. This is not one of them. And honestly, I knew this wasn't going to be very good when I saw the runtime.
Yeah, 52 minutes is a very big teller.
Whenever, because normally they get a tight 75, and sometimes they're able to get a lot done in that 75. When this movie didn't even get 75 minutes, I knew at that point that it was not going to be spectacular. And if it was spectacular, I was going to be pissed about it because it was only 52 minutes. So the 52-minute timestamp is when I think I, without seeing anything, was pretty sure that this wasn't getting over a 7.
Yeah.
And then whenever I started watching the movie, I was like, okay, they did have a really good voice cast because
I
there
will
were,
give them that. I will. That's probably all of the 4 points I gave them is for the top four that I like as voice actors.
yeah, and I'm surprised that as low budget as this movie felt, they had the voice cast that they did.
That's actually, yeah. How do they afford Laura Bailey, Diedrich Bader, and Dante Basco for a movie? Like, what?
Yeah, like they had a quality voice cast,
And
and
Kevin Michael Richardson. That just,
yeah, I'm not, yeah, like Gray Delisle, like she and Kevin Michael Richardson are at like the highest tier of voice acting. Like,
they do all the video games and
yeah,
animated movies.
that's like when you get them, you've got a quality item. And again, Dante Basco, like, so again the cast list was stacked up, and a good actor can only do so much with a bad script.
That is true.
So, you know, I knew early that this movie wasn't going to be great, but I will say it had things in it that I enjoyed. So the voice cast was one of those things. I really liked Robin in this movie, like
Hmm.
generally.
Hmm.
I did not like Wonder Woman in this movie. Um, yeah, I don't really have feelings about Lex in this movie, and I feel like I should. Like I should have either liked him or disliked him, but yeah, Lex just kind of existed in this
Another
movie.
non-factor. Just all our key character points. Just you know what? They didn't even do nothing this time.
Yeah. Um, and Time Trapper was just kind of evil for the sake of being evil.
Yeah, had no real purpose. Just I'm gonna remake the world. That's what you want to do? That I couldn't be a hero in these worlds. I would be so confused. I'd be like, uh, the guy that was just, bro, you're free. You can go anywhere you want, and you want to remake. All right,
And that's the
okay.
thing. I think we can attribute him to the fact that he's not like a person. So he doesn't have human desires. He's just one of those like beings of like very comic book, just being of pure evil for no real reason.
I will destroy the world because that is my purpose. Why? Because.
Like, why are you? Because nobody actually uses the word evil to describe themselves. And so, yeah, like he's one of those that's like, I am evil because I am evil.
Mhm.
Because in most things that make sense, like people do bad things for some reason. Sometimes it's greed, sometimes it's revenge, sometimes it's vanity. Like there are a lot of reasons people do bad things. Even if you look at like the people way back in the day, like old Disney villains, like the evil queen was evil because of vanity. Like she wasn't
Yes.
the baddest bitch, and that was a problem for her.
Magic mirror. Who? Not you. What?
Like somebody else better than me? Okay. Maleficent got slighted. Like,
She did. The ultimate crash out right there.
yeah. Now let me tell you, was she petty? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
She said, I'm gonna curse that baby. But so yeah, she was petty, but she like I understand. So even with like the old villains, not comic book villains, but like villains in general, like they're evil with the purpose or evil for a reason. And he wasn't. He was pretty like classic, standard, old school villain because we see a lot of Batman's villains like in the 60s. Like they was evil for the sake of being like there wasn't really a
Hmm.
reason. Like sometimes they were stealing money, but otherwise they were just like, yeah, my dastardly plan. Ha ha. Ha."
I'm gonna take over the world or rob
Yeah.
this bank.
And it doesn't Like there was no benefit for like he was just evil because. And I guess whenever you're made of dark energy or dark matter, like that's just how it happens.
You know what? We'll just add that to the list of excuses for being evil.
Is
The ever-growing
made of
list.
dark matter.
I'm made of dark matter. Oh, instantly evil. Okay, cool. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Um, Shout out to Blue Marble. I just, or is that antimatter? That's not dark matter. It's antimatter. Never mind. Never mind. We're gonna keep dark matter in the category.
Yeah, who knows? It's all just nonsense. But again, I think that in their efforts to make this palatable for children, it suffered narratively,
That it did.
at least for me. And the reason I'm okay saying that is because I have seen other things that are made directly for children that are excellent. And so it can be done. So, yeah, 5.5.
That's about all it deserves.
David, anything else on the movie?
No, I think we're good on that one. The next time I want a feature. I want a big feature. We need a blockbuster, a showstopper. Walls rattling because we got the surround sound on.
David, I can't have you on everything. Like I can't. It's like it's and friends,
You
and
got to give the people what they want.
because if you think about it, the first two movies I had you on were both hitters.
They were top tier.
So
I've been spoiled.
exactly, I think that's the problem.
Spoiled it.
But anyway, I think I have a pretty good idea of the next one I'll have you on. So we'll just see what happens. But it will be a minute before the people hear your voice again on this podcast.
Ta ta, my friends.
In the next episode, we will be discussing Batman Ninja. So until then, salutations.